Israel was oppressed by the Midianites for 7 years in a row, and these years turned the once-free people into a pack of terrified refugees hiding in mountain caves, rock crevices and underground shelters, because every harvest season brought a new invasion of nomads. The Midianites, with their allies, the Amalekites and other tribes of the east, came like locusts, covering the land with countless tents and camels, devouring everything that the Israelites had grown in a year, leaving behind hunger and despair. In the city of Ophrah lived a man named Gideon, the youngest son in a poor family from the weakest tribe of Manasseh, and when the angel of the Lord found him, this future commander was threshing wheat in a winepress for grapes, a deep pit where grapes were usually crushed, but grain was never threshed, because there is no wind to blow. However, Gideon was hiding there from the Midianite scouts, who were taking the last grain from the people. It was a portrait of a defeated people, a man secretly cultivating the pitiful remnants of crops in a pit, like a thief stealing his own property on his own land. The angel greeted him with words that sounded like cruel mockery. "The Lord is with you, strong man." Addressing the man who was hiding in the pit from his enemies at that very moment, Gideon replied with bitterness and doubt, "If the Lord is with us, why did all this happen to us? And where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about?" The question sounded almost like an accusation. Where is the God who brought us out of Egypt, divided the sea, fed us with manna? Why is he silent now? But the Lord did not justify himself or explain. He simply gave the order, "Go with all your might and save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Am I not sending you?" Gideon, shocked, tried to refuse, listing all the reasons for his unsuitability. "Oh my God, how will I save Israel? Behold, my tribe is the poorest in the tribe of Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's house." He was nothing out of nowhere, the youngest son in a poor family from a weak family. But that was exactly the kind of person God chose, someone who couldn't attribute victory to his strength or nobility. Gideon, convinced through a series of signs that this was indeed the will of God, sent messengers throughout Israel, calling men to arms against the common enemy, and 32,000 people responded to his call, not the largest army. Considering that they were opposed by 135,000 professional desert warriors, but at least some that's the chance for resistance. The ratio was 1 to 4 heavy odds, but not hopeless for a defensive war in the highlands. But then God spoke words that must have seemed to Gideon like utter madness. "There are too many people with you. I cannot deliver the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel become proud before me and say, 'My hand has saved me.'" The logic was clear but cruel. If Israel won with an army of 32,000, they would attribute the success to their own courage, numbers, tactics, anything but God's intervention. Gideon announced in the camp, "Whoever is timid, let him return and go back." And 22,000 people turned around and went home, leaving only 10,000 soldiers. 2/3 of the army evaporated with a single announcement, and now the ratio has become 1 to 13, which is frankly suicidal for an open battle. But God said again, "There are still many people. Lead them to the water, and I will test them for you there." Gideon led 10,000 soldiers to the spring, and there the Lord established a strange selection criterion, to divide people into those who drink water, bending over to face it, and those who scoop up a handful of water and bring it to their mouths, maintaining an upright position and a view of the surrounding space. Those who drank with a handful remained vigilant even at the moment of quenching thirst. Their right hand was free for weapons, their gaze continued to scan the area. They drank like warriors, ready for sudden danger. Only 300 people passed this test, a measly 3% of the remaining army, one warrior against 450 enemies, a mathematical formula for complete destruction in a matter of minutes. Gideon looked at this handful of people and probably felt horror, but God made a promise. "With 300 lapping I will save you and deliver the Midianites into your hands." But even after all the signs, Gideon was still on the verge of panic because God, seeing his fear, said something unexpectedly gentle. "If you are afraid to go alone, take your servant's wagon with you and go to the camp and listen to what they say." It was an amazing condescension. God did not reproach for fear, but offered a way to strengthen faith. In the dead of night, Gideon and the truck crept to the edge of the huge enemy camp, which spread out in the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were innumerable. There were many of them, like sand on the seashore, a visual confirmation of the madness of their mission. They crept up to one of the outermost tents and heard a conversation. A Midianite was telling a comrade his dream about how barley bread, a symbol of Israel's poverty, rolled into the camp and overturned the tent. The comrade interpreted the dream with horror. This is none other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, the Israelite. God delivered the Midianites and the whole camp into his hand. The enemies were already afraid of Gideon. They had already seen prophetic dreams about their defeat. They already knew that their days were numbered, and this information blew up the remnants of fear in Gideon's heart. He returned to his 300 shouting, "Get up! The Lord has delivered the Midianite camp into your hands." Gideon divided the 300 warriors into 3 squads of 100 men, and gave each not a sword or a spear, but 3 objects: a trumpet in his right hand, an earthenware jug in his left, and a burning torch inside the jug. The plan was absurd from a military point of view. No weapons for hand-to-hand combat, only noise instruments and light sources, but it was precisely in this absurdity that the genius of psychological warfare lay. Around midnight, at the deepest time of sleep, when the middle guard had just been relieved, 300 men silently surrounded the huge camp from 3 sides, forming a triangle around the valley where 135,000 Midianites were sleeping. At Gideon's signal, all 300 simultaneously smashed earthenware jars with a deafening crash, and in the silence of the night, 300 torches suddenly flared up around the perimeter of the camp, and then 300 trumpets exploded with sound, and 300 voices shouted, "The sword of the Lord and Gideon!" The effect was disastrous. The Midianites woke up in complete disorientation, surrounded by light and sound from all sides, and in a panic decided that they were being attacked by a huge army. After all, 300 trumpets and 300 torches could mean at least 3 full legions, if each trumpeter represents a detachment of warriors. In the darkness, in the chaos, not understanding where the attack was coming from and how many enemies there were, the Midianites grabbed their weapons and began to chop down everyone who moved nearby, killing their comrades, mistaking them for Israelis. 300 Gideon's warriors stood in their positions, holding torches and blowing trumpets, not engaging in hand-to-hand combat, just creating the illusion of a massive attack from different directions, and that was enough. The 135,000 army was falling apart from the inside. The warriors were killing each other in blind panic, and those who survived fled east in complete disarray. When dawn lit up the valley, the field was littered with Midianite corpses, killed not by the Israelites but by their own swords in the night of terror. Upon seeing the enemy fleeing, Gideon sent messengers throughout Israel, urging people to join the pursuit, and thousands of Israelis who had been afraid to fight in direct conflict now happily joined the hunt for the demoralized enemy. It was an avalanche of popular enthusiasm. When 300 did the impossible, the rest found the courage to finish what they had started, cutting off the escape routes, seizing crossings over the Jordan. Of the 135,000 Midianites, 120,000 died in battle and pursuit, and when Gideon pursued the remnants of the army to the east, he overtook the last 15,000 surviving soldiers in Karkor and defeated them completely, taking 2 kings, Zeba and Salmon, captive. The people, who had been hiding in caves for 7 years, destroyed their oppressors overnight with such completeness that the Midianites never raised their heads against Israel again. The story of Gideon is not just an ancient military tale about cunning tactics and psychological warfare, but a radical demonstration that God specifically chooses impossible situations so that no one can attribute victory to human power or wisdom. Gideon was a coward hiding in a pit. God called him a strong man. The army was reduced from 32,000 to 300. The ratio of forces became 1 to 450. A mathematically guaranteed defeat. The weapons were not swords, but pitchers and pipes, a complete absurdity.